We are coming at you today on the Matt and Eric Talk Twins podcast with a very special episode, an episode I personally didn't think that we might make for maybe even years. That is the Twins leading the entire American League episode, something that certainly not a soul would have expected when the season started, certainly not something that me and Matt would have expected when we started this podcast, certainly not this early. But, ladies and gentlemen, by God, we're here, we've done it, and they don't really seem like they're going to slow down all that much. So, everybody, welcome in. We have a bit of a special podcast going on today as well. Unfortunately, Matt is traveling for work this week, so I'm flying solo for my first solo pod episode. And I'm really excited to talk about this Twins team because they are doing exciting stuff. Obviously, we're leading the league, not the league, we're leading the American League in terms of win percentage, wins, like even run differential. These are things that I just can't get over because the Twins should not be doing this right now, plain and simple, but they are. And what I want to talk about today is expectations because obviously the Twins being where they are, granted it's only what 12% of the season through, is so surprising, not because they're at the top of the American League Central, but because of where the expectations were placed for them before the season started and where the expectations frankly still are. And that's where I think that the rest of the league has a lot of catching up to do with the Minnesota Twins. Are a lot of these hot starts going to last? Maybe, maybe not. Leaning more towards maybe not for a lot of guys. I'm looking at you, Brooks Lee. But the big thing is there's a lot of underlying expected numbers early in the season that would suggest that by and large the Twins can continue this. This is not something that is a 1 week wonder for the Twins. This is not something we're going to look back on in August when we're 30 games under 500 and be like, oh man, you remember when we caught fire for 3 weeks and the world had to notice the Minnesota Twins for a little bit? No, there's going to be some of that. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we're going to the World Series all of a sudden, but I am going to sit here and tell you that this Minnesota Twins team is legitimately good, and I'm going to set out to prove it today. I think the biggest thing that a lot of people have been surprised by, caught off guard by, certainly me and Matt, myself included, is the offense. I mean, this offense was not supposed to produce. If it was going to produce, it was going to be extremely top heavy with Luke Keeschel and Byron Buxton providing so much of the offense. It was going to be Matt Wallner just willing us to games where he hits monster home runs, maybe even two or three in a game. And it hasn't been. Not that those guys have been terrible. Byron Buxton is absolutely on fire. He started out the season in a slump. No one was worried, rightfully so. He's showing everybody exactly why we had nothing to worry about. As I'm recording on Wednesday morning, which had to get in just so I could officially claim sole possession of first place in the American League. Byron Buxton just went 4 for 4 with another monster night, hit a home run, led off with our opening run of the game on a second to home run scored off a Luke Keeschel single. And that might be the least notable appearance he had in the on the base paths yesterday. It might have been the least important thing he did, but to me, I think it really epitomizes where this team is at, the tone that they're setting, and why I believe that there is sustainability behind this early season success for the Twins. And it's because it's going to sound old head of me, but they're playing offense the right way. Byron Buxton scored that first run yesterday because he got on first after a hard earned, not walk, a single, advanced to second on a balk from Sonny Gray, and then was able to go from second to home on a pretty routine single to center from Luke Keeschel, just because it's Byron goddamn Buxton. He's got some of the best speed in the major leagues. I think that has been kind of the theme of this Minnesota Twins offense. We lead the league in plate appearances with the bases loaded. We lead the league in RBIs with the bases loaded. Naturally, that would go hand in hand. And you could take a glass half empty approach to this and say that the Twins are going to regress more towards the league average in terms of production with runners on base, or not runners on base, but runners filling the bases with the bases loaded. And there's bound to be some regression for a team that I believe is hitting 270 with the bases loaded so far this season. But that doesn't matter because it's not about how productive they've been early on in the season with the bases loaded. It's the fact that they're getting there. Getting the bases loaded means that you had not one, not two, but at a minimum three guys go up back to back to back and put together productive plate appearances. And that is how you build sustainable offense. You're going to have games where you just got to thug it out. You're going to have to hope that Joe Ryan can throw 7 shutty and a 2-run Matt Wallner homer can be the difference maker in a 2-1, 2-0 ball game. But that's not how you build a contender. That's not how you build a sustainable offense or a winning team. And that's why I'm so excited about this Twins team to start the season, because they're not just playing for themselves. They really are playing as a team, and it shows. They're playing for the next guy in the batting order, and that shows. They're drawing walks at a great rate. Matt Wallner continues to get absolutely pummeled with hit by pitches and shrug them off to the tune of, not only has he played, I want to say he's only missed 1 game this season. He leads the league in strikeouts, which is not a great stat to necessarily flex Matt Wallner's start to the season. He's certainly been in a slump, but it says something to his availability that he's taken multiple pitches already this season. He's been able to shrug them off, not only not go on the injured list, but most often just stay in the game after taking a hit, which is something that not a lot of players be willing to do. And it's that 1 to 9 kind of contribution that I think has really sparked the offense in the early going and really makes me believe in this offense as a whole. I think that everybody's going to look at this and naturally say, well, yeah, it's cool that the Twins are doing this right now, but this isn't them. There's so many guys who are playing so far beyond their means that we can't really expect them to hold this up. Not just that their production in bases loaded situations is bound to drop, but the fact that they're just by nature not going to find their way into so many of those. And you're right, to an extent. Like I said, every high has to have a low. Statistical regression is very real, and after 12% of the season, we are in the ripest time for that to strike. But if you go on to Baseball Savant, which I've been just sitting on scrolling for about half an hour before we started recording, I think the big thing to me is just the lack of guys that are truly outperforming their expected numbers, both in the lineup and in the rotation. If you want to go to Baseball Savant and you're going to look at batting average versus expected batting average, and the guys who are currently hitting way beyond their means at an average much higher than they would be expected to, you scroll and you do find Brooks Lee right away. That one I don't think a lot of people are surprised about. I love that Brooks Lee has looked alive recently. We do still need him to be a competent player this season, even if he does ultimately get usurped by Culpepper at shortstop. Brooks Lee still immediately becomes our everyday utility man. I would still expect him, no matter what time Kalen Culpepper comes up, no matter how impactful he is, even if he takes the everyday starting shortstop job, that barring an injury, Brooks Lee's going to get to at least 130 games this year. So it's important, but if Brooks Lee being 28th in the league in batting average over expected is the absolute ceiling for this Twins team, that again is the basis of a very repeatable offense. If you keep scrolling down the list, we see Austin Martin and Ryan Jeffers also in the top 50 for hitters of batting average over expected. And then that's it. The list just falls. I mean, it doesn't fall off, but the Twins fall off the list. The next hitter on the list is Josh Bell, sitting at 99th overall, because he is hitting actually a decent 250 over an expected 239. That's the difference. That's the type of fall off, I guess you could call it, that we are statistically looking at expecting. And it's stuff like that that has me legitimately optimistic that this Twins team isn't just hot. They're actually just maybe a better team than everybody expected. Maybe this is, God forbid, if we could believe, a very young team fielding very young players that needed time to develop and still do need time to develop. but maybe some of them have actually developed a little bit. It's a crazy idea that the Twins could actually develop talent, especially on the hitting end, that would be impactful to an everyday Major League Baseball team. But why can't we believe that's the truth? Why can't we believe that some of these are not just statistical outliers, but signs of legitimate improvement? If we flip over to the slugging leaderboards, you'd say, well, okay, the Twins are getting themselves on base a lot. They might not walk that much. They're definitely going to fall off in batting average. But more importantly, without these big gap doubles, home runs off the second deck, shout out Ryan Kreidler for some reason. Certainly, the Twins aren't going to be able to keep driving these runs in the manner they have. And so we'll sort the expected over actual slugging leaderboard. And once again, we see Brixley with the 10th highest slugging over expected in the league right now. So anybody who is buying Brixley, once again, go see a doctor and then fade him, start selling him. And after that, we really have to scroll here. I mean, the next guy on this list is Royce Lewis, who's 54th in slugging over expected. And he is slugging an absolute, well, I wouldn't say paltry. 0.062 is his slugging over expected. He's currently slugging at a 444 clip. His expected is at 382. And even a 382 is not a terrible clip for Royce Lewis. It would not necessarily be league shattering. It would not be like an all-star level performance. But if Royce Lewis can get to a 382 slugging percentage and combine that with even a 330 on base percentage, he's showing an OPS north of 700, which would be an above league average bat, which would be a productive at bat at third base. We keep scrolling once again. The only other Twin that I see featured in the top 100 is Josh Bell, only because he's just been absolutely hitting the crap out of the ball. His 483 slugging percentage definitely won't hold this season, but great news, Twins fans. Once again, his expected slugging is a 444. So even if Josh Bell falls off and regresses to the means, he's still slugging 444. He's still on pace to put up what I think could be a legitimate all-star season, the way that he's been hitting. And the thing is, you keep going down this list, and the Twins just don't show up, which is a good thing. You've got, what do we have here? We have Matt Wallner with a paltry .022 slugging over expected, and that is the 90th highest figure in baseball. So there's just not a lot of expected regression coming for this team. If you want to put this all together real quick, we're going to look at expected weighted on base average, which is far and away a much more secure and accurate metric to tell you about a player's overall offensive performance. We're going to go, and once again, we're going to look at WOBA over expected. And once again, Brixley has the 13th highest weighted on base average over expected. I really cannot stress enough how much we just need to pray that Brixley's resurgence can last long enough for reinforcements to arrive, because sorting by expected weighted on base average or weighted on base average over expected more accurately, we scroll and we scroll and we scroll, and the second entrant on this list for the Minnesota Twins is Byron Buxton. Now tell me, if the hitter who is hitting beyond his means, much better than he should be statistically, second most on the team is Byron Buxton, are we really that worried if the most unlikely start to the season is Byron Buxton? We know he's going to come back around. We know he's going to shake out of it. He already is. This team has been posting not only good numbers, but legitimately good numbers that they can support, that they can back up statistically. Their batted ball profiles match the output that this team has put out so far. And it only takes maybe another month of this for the Twins to start being treated differently in the MLB. I don't blame anybody right now who thinks that this is an anomaly for the Twins. I can't say I totally buy into it myself. We don't even have a 50% shot at making the playoffs yet still, which is extremely reasonable and valid because this is still the same Minnesota Twins team that we started the season with. But what we can say is they are undeniably better than anybody would have thought starting the season. And when you're only 12%, I think we're playing actively our 18th game of the season. If I'm doing my math right, if I'm remembering our games, that's all you can really ask for because you don't really win the division this early in the season. You don't win the World Series. You don't really win anything important this early into the season, but you sure do lose it. And that's the issue that the Twins have dug themselves in time and time again. And that's why this season, I think, is so much more refreshing, not only because we're doing so much better over expectations, but because the Twins, for once in the target field era, have actually started hot. Of course, as hot as the Twins bats have been to start the season, I do also want to highlight what we expected to actually be the strength of this team, the pitching staff, because unsurprisingly, it has legitimately been the strength of this team, albeit maybe not in the way that a lot of people would have expected. So I'm going to go about this a little bit differently. I'm looking at just straight up the run value across all pitches a pitcher has thrown so far in 2026. Right now, Baseball Savant has 300 qualified pitchers on their leaderboard. At is a little high. There's a little bit of noise on this leaderboard still, just because we're early enough into the season that a lot of relief pitchers are still able to qualify for these leaderboards. Um, that being said, we entered the season, or at least we entered the off season, expecting the one upside, the one plus of our team to be the pitching staff, specifically the starting pitching staff, because we felt like we had two pretty rock solid aces at the top of the staff. And then we had some guys that are going to throw you some competitive innings, that are going to keep you in games, that are going to throw you out of some games, but are largely respectable middle to end of the rotation pitchers in Sim and Bailey Ober, and then a whole lot of young, exciting talent behind that that could flash, could pop, and could really shine this year. A lot of people thought that dream was gone when Pablo Lopez got hurt, and it isn't. The twin staff still looks exactly like that, is set up exactly in that manner, and it really is just all thanks to the resurgence of Taj Bradley. It really is all thanks to the Taj Bradley breakout, who currently Taj Bradley sits 19th amongst all pitchers in expected run value across all of his pitches this year. That is paired with Joe Ryan, who's sitting 30th right now, who has +4 run value across all his pitches. These guys are doing exactly what we thought they would, exactly what we need them to, and that is anchoring two-fifths of our entire season with starts that are always going to be competitive. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to win every start. In this case, just so happens that we have won every game Taj Bradley started. Certainly not a metric that is going to hold up. But the big thing is the Twins aren't beating themselves so far. They have not gotten imploded by pitchers the way that Twins bats have really ambushed pitchers. They have largely kept games in check. They've kept games competitive. They've given everybody a reason to believe for 9 innings. Very ironic because as I say that, Sim just blew up for 5 runs in the second against Boston in what was more or less a loss that has been coming to the Minnesota Twins. But the important part about this pitching staff is that they have stayed afloat. They have kept this team on the straight and narrow, and they haven't pitched us out of games yet, which is really all you could have asked this pitching staff to do. On top of Taj Bradley and Joe Ryan throwing like aces this year, Mick Abel has been able to rebound from a extremely rough first outing where he came in relief and gave up, what was it, like 6 runs in 4 innings or something. He's thrown back to back absolute gems coming in as a primary starter, something that I really wanted to see the Twins do. I mentioned when he came in as a piggyback to Bailey Ober in his first appearance that while it was understandable and a pretty common early season situation, still was not a huge fan of the Twins doing it for such a young guy like Mick Abel, who was really getting his legs under him. And he so far has validated all that and then some because he became the youngest pitcher in Twins history since Jose Barrios in 2018 to throw 10 Ks and not walk a single batter last night on his way to absolutely dicing up the Boston Red Sox. And on top of that, this has got to be, I'd say, the most surprising stat out of everything we've talked about so far today. Bailey Ober has rode the roller coaster, the highs and the lows, through 4 starts this season. We've seen plenty of both already, to a total run value across all of his pitches of -1. Is it great? No. Is it what we really hoped for from Bailey Ober bouncing back from an injury laden season? No. But if we have Joe Ryan and Taj Bradley pitching like true aces, and we have McAbel who can go out there and shove just as often as he won't and can show signs of being a true ace from time to time. We don't need Bailey Ober to be 2024, 2023 Bailey Ober. We don't need the borderline ace that he used to look like. Obviously, we could use it. Of course, it would help any team. But if Bailey Ober is settling in to a new career and a new reality where he is borderline a league average pitcher, the Twins can take that. Because if Bailey Ober can throw 6 innings of 3 to 5 run ball every fifth day, that's still valuable and that's still competitive. I think that's the biggest thing that I'm taking away from this early season Twins team is that they haven't really played uncompetitive games yet, which is truly, I think, just as important as the record they're putting up right now, because it shows that, again, these wins aren't flukes. We aren't just happening to win a ton of one-run ball games. We aren't getting absolutely decimated in all of our losses. We lead the American League in run differential. Like, this is a team that has been backing up the record with legitimately solid numbers, legitimately solid expected numbers, and legitimately impressive and top of the league results. Whether that holds or not, we have about 150 games to figure that out still. But right now in Twins land, we just need to kick our feet back and watch good Twins baseball, because who knows how much longer we're going to be able to do that this season. So for now, take what's coming to us and sit back and simply enjoy the show. All right, before I let you guys go on this shorter episode of Matt and Eric Talk Twins podcast this week, we do have some Twins news to round up real quick. The most notable ones is we did recently lose Royce Lewis to a knee sprain and Cody Lawyerson to a forearm strain. One of those is obviously much more damaging than the other. Our bullpen may never be the same without Cody Lawyerson. The end is near. No, obviously, I'm kidding. Shout out Cody Lawyerson for being solid-ish while he was pitching so far. Unfortunately, forearm strains do tend to be a little dicey. We might not see him for a while. Could be a month, could be 2 or 3 even. It's one of those things we just are going to kind of have to wait and see on. The Royce Lewis injury does hurt a lot more. He had an 822 OPS before he went down. Obviously, I was talking earlier about some of our expected numbers. Royce was also a prime candidate for some of the bigger regression on the team. But you've got a long ways to regress when your 822 OPS is 135 points above the MLB average. And thankfully for him, with it being just a knee sprain, that should, keyword should, I don't want to jinx anything, I'm knocking on wood as we speak, should be a much more straightforward recovery timeline for him. 4 to 8 weeks, should be back before the summer really kicks into gear. The corresponding moves there, me and Matt, being we, did talk as soon as Royce Lewis went down about a possibility where if the Twins were not enamored by Brooks Lee's defense, which would surprise nobody because, let's be real, it's not been good. If there's one thing that was expected to be bad and has held up as genuinely bad and could derail this Twin season, our defense has been legitimately atrocious still. But when we saw Royce Lewis go down, I think we both in unison had our first thought of, why not send Brooks Lee out to third base? And why not call up Kalen Culpepper? Yes, it's tremendously early, but he's looked great at AAA to start this season. Would be a very, very similar career path and call-up timeline to what we saw out of Luke Keisha last year. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Twins were not on the same vibe as us, and I don't really blame them. As fun as it would have been to see Kalen Culpepper come up and slot right into the middle of an absolutely surging Twins team, they took the more mature and responsible long term outlook, and instead the call up was Ryan Kreidler. I'll figure it out one day. Who they announced and have shown is largely going to spend that entire time Royce Lewis is on the injured list, platooning with Tristan Gray, which is not the worst outcome for the Twins because you either have Tristan Gray, who has had a surprisingly impactful bat to start the season, at your hot corner where you want some offensive thump, or you have Ryan Kreidler, who has shown already elite defensive chops at shortstop. There's no doubt that if we're having a lot of defensive issues, that having Ryan Kreidler at third base every day is going to at least give us some sort of stability somewhere on the field for a team that really lacks it defensively. I think the more exciting corresponding move here was Andrew Morris getting called up to make his big league debut with Cody Lawson going on the IL. He pitched in long relief. I forget which game it was, but he was phenomenal. I want to say 4 innings, 1 earned. And more importantly, the Twins kept him up. They pretty much said, hey, this guy looked pretty good. We've got multiple pitchers that are always a risk to get shelled and leave early, a la Simeon Woods Richardson, Bailey Ober. So it makes sense for the Twins to have a legitimately bona fide long relief pitcher on the roster. That's something that they didn't really have, surprisingly, in their bullpen before this call up. But yeah, they pretty much said, hey, Andrew Morris, as long as you keep getting the job done, it's yours. They're not looking to convert him to a short inning reliever. They've been clear about that. But if Andrew Morris can come in and pitch 3 to 5 innings in relief every fourth, fifth day, I think the Twins are going to be happy with that. And I don't really blame them because while it's not ideal, it still keeps him stretched out. It keeps him roughly on a starting pitcher schedule. And more importantly, it gets him Major League Baseball reps. I've been hounding for that all off season, all spring training, even early this season. I just talked about how I want to see Kalen Culpepper up. If Andrew Morris has a path to playing and getting legitimate, consistent playing time in the MLB, I too want to see him up here because he's never going to learn anywhere better than he is at the MLB level. And so I think that'll be great, not only for his development, but hopefully as a stabilizing force in the Twins bullpen if he can continue to do what he showed us in his first outing. Our final little scoop of the week is going to come also in our bullpen. Zach Kent became the first victim of what everybody knew was going to be a terrible bullpen with a lot of ups and downs, both metaphorically and literally. And he was the first down after, I believe it was 2 different bad appearances. He got sent down. Called up was Garrett Acton. I got to be honest, guys. I had to look this guy up before I started recording. I saw from Aaron Gleeman that when we traded for him on April 4th, he was already on his fourth team in 5 months. And the very next day, he was the call up for Zach Kent getting sent down. It's not a lot to write home about. He has very minimal major league experience. What he does have is not great. He's already a 27-year-old pitcher. So it's not like this is a prospect that just hasn't found his chance to break into the major leagues yet. This is just another guy that is a guy of all time in Twins history. He will throw pitches for the Minnesota Twins. Some of them will be strikes. He will get outs. Probably not as many as we would like, but that is still, I would say, a great place to land on the reality of this Minnesota Twins team. There's a lot of stuff going right. There's a lot of stuff that's exciting. There's a lot of reasons to really believe that this hot start might not be a mirage. But there's still a lot of reasons to believe that this Minnesota Twins team is poorly constructed and is filled, maybe not with a Swiss cheese level amount of holes, but definitely more holes than you would ever like to see a major league team be constructed with. So we'll see. Right now, I'm riding this wave, I'm riding this high, and I pray that all of you can as well, because no matter how you feel about the Lads and everything that's going on, I am not going to get into details on the whole interaction between Tom Polad and the fan the other night. I don't think anybody's really a winner there, so I'm not going to touch it. But regardless of how you feel about the state of this team, the direction they've been headed in, and the way they've been treated by ownership and the way fans have been treated by ownership, I guess I'm going to end this episode with a simple plea. We didn't become baseball fans because we loved the way that the Pohlads run business. We didn't become baseball fans because we were absolutely revitalized, energized, awestruck, and never forgot the trade that got Garrett Acton into Minnesota to become the bottom man of our bullpen in 2026. No, we are fans because we love baseball and we love the Minnesota Twins. And I guess it'll make me sound like a hippie. I've always been love over hate. I hate the Pohlads, don't get me wrong. I would also love to see them sell the team. We've been on this over and over and over. But at the end of the day, I fucking love the Minnesota Twins. They're my favorite team in my favorite sport of one of my biggest passions in my life. And I don't care who owns the team. I don't care what they do to them. You could just send the entire team down right now and call up our single A, high A roster, and I would still be watching as many games as I could, cheering along every night and hoping for the best because I'm a baseball fan. I love baseball and that's what I do. And I pray that no matter how bad it might get with the Pohlads, no matter how much they may piss us off, no matter how many reasons they give us to hate them, that your love of baseball, along with mine, will always reign over anything that they can do. I love baseball. I love the Twins. And holy crap, I love this winning streak. So for Matt, I am Eric. This is the Matt and Eric Talk Twins podcast. As always, you can find us on Spotify, on YouTube, on Amazon, really anywhere that you get your podcasts at. We're also on Twitter. We have the Matt and Eric Talk Twins podcast. You can also catch us both individually on Twitter. We're a lot more active individually than we are on the actual pod Twitter. If you want more of our individualized thoughts, heat of the moment thoughts, in game thoughts, all that fun jazz, go find us on Twitter. If not, until then, we'll see you next week.